will do that
Yeah,
just in
okay.
case. Everybody, welcome back to the Konkering Pod. This is our marketing funnel.
Oh.
And who have we got here today, Maddie?
We've got Kate Williams here with us today.
Hello.
I always say that, but then I'm like, introduce yourself. But I've just introduced you to
classic.
everyone.
I would like you to introduce me. Give me a nice rundown.
Oh, okay. So we've got,
Class pressure.
for this marketing funnel episode, we have got the email marketing queen, I'm going to call her. When I last listened to Kate's talk at Building Brands last year, it really did inspire me to get started on our email marketing journey. So I'm hoping this episode is going to do the same for a lot of other people. Food and drink, beverage, that's the same as drink, but connoisseur. I feel like you probably are a connoisseur at this point with everything you've tried, working with all the amazing brands, and just all round great girl from how long we've spent together this morning. How's that?
You've done an all right job there.
Did I do okay?
You were in danger of talking too much.
I was like, how do I round this up?
Okay, first question.
Hold on.
Go
I
on.
love testing people with that intro because it just tells me how good our marketing is.
Yeah.
Are we telling people enough about what we're doing?
Yeah.
That was
Did I
pretty
pass
good.
the test? Okay.
That was pretty good.
I think you
That
did
was
pretty
good.
well. Yeah, pretty well.
Sorry. Over to you.
Well, no, it's just to start it off then. Okay, tell us a little bit about your business in like the most simple terms and what you do, as if, we don't know anything about your business.
That's why I tested you.
Yeah.
So we are a food and drink digital marketing agency, and in a really short term, we drive online growth for food and drink brands. That's the shortest way I can summarize it.
Mhm.
It took a really long time to get there, to get to that like short line. But it's simple, and that's basically what we do. So if you've got a product, you sell a product online, we help you market it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Now give us some specifics.
Okay, so whether that is, I'll use popcorn a lot because we've got a popcorn client, right? And I've worked with them for a really long time. If you have a product and you sell it online and you do wholesale as well, so I'm talking about you're going direct to consumer and you're selling wholesale, so you've got two sides of your business. What we hear a lot is the online space might be like 5 to 10% of my business, whereas wholesale sits at like 90%. So we are picking up that 5%, that 10%, and we're helping them to grow that. Now it should be like a 30%, should be 40% in terms of online, in terms of your revenue. And that growth opportunity is huge there because you aren't losing margin, you aren't losing profit as much as you are if you're going direct into a farm shop, for example, or a garden centre. So we use tactics like email marketing, we use social media, and my team are massive advocates for social media. But I definitely sit in that email space because it's really easy to quantify the effort in and the revenue out. And I think that's really important with clients because we work with small to medium-sized businesses. Budgets are really short, really tight. And if somebody said to me, Kate, I'm going to give you X amount, I want you to triple that back, I would directly go into email because I'd be like, I can do that. And I know I can do that. And I know I can quantify it. If I do it with social, it's a bit loose. It's a bit, it's longer. It's a longer customer journey, longer to get those customers to convert. But if I do it with email, I just know I can get that revenue in really quickly.
I think it's a nice point because there's so many businesses that really struggle to like quantify the return on marketing, don't they? And then for that reason, they don't bother doing it.
100%. And it's a battle I have all the time. And I think as my career's gone on, and again, within our agency, we always talk about it is an education piece as well with marketing, because I think, I'll use my brother as a great example. You're in marketing, it's all fluff, it's all just words. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, if you do it properly, it's really powerful. But the key is doing the right activities and not wasting budget. I think that's the most important part.
So should every business do email marketing?
Every business should do email marketing, whether you're a small business, whether you're a big business. Email marketing and your CRM and your data should be at the heart of your business.
Yeah.
And if it's not, you're missing out, because I think from, if you think about your business and you think about what you own from a marketing perspective, you don't own your followers, you don't own your algorithm, you don't own anything in the digital space, but you own your database. And that's why everybody should be doing it.
With email marketing, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because I know like sales and marketing, they're quite closely tied together, aren't they? And
Yeah.
some people conflate the two, but email marketing is very like intentional type of
Yeah.
marketing in comparison to like social media, isn't it? Because you can quantify it and you know exactly what you're getting back. So you could even call it like business development, or you can put it in that sales
100%.
bracket as well, can't you?
Yeah.
Because we you know, our recruitment business, we do a lot of a type of email marketing, you could say. And I would never see that as like the marketing. I would see that as more like the sales sort of process almost.
Yeah.
So
And I think as well, what we find really interesting is, again, because we're working with food and drink brands and their businesses are split. So the wholesale side is B2B and they're communicating with a buyer or a garden centre owner or whatever that might be. And then they are dealing with consumers. They always say to me, well, Kate, why do I need an email marketing platform just for newsletters? But I think the key to that is you pull all of your email marketing into one system and you create an ecosystem, a database, a CRM where you can communicate to different types of people. And that's where we look at things like segmenting and we look at VIP customers and we look at, what do those different pots look like and how can you be really personalized? Because let's face it, in 2025, if you aren't personalizing your marketing, again, you might as well not send a newsletter. You might as well not spend your time. I think everybody has those things in their inbox where you go through, like I get like 60 emails a day that I just don't read, but people cleanse their database more than their email platform. Oh, people cleanse their emails more than ever and unsubscribe. You see people unsubscribing all the time. But I think what's key is if you're immersed into a brand, you are going to open their newsletters. You are going to, involve yourself in their brand because you're interested. And that's why email marketing needs to be at the heart of that, I think.
So if I'm a business going all the way back then, we're a business that wants to do email marketing and wants to start, but just doesn't know where to begin.
Yeah.
What advice would you give?
So first off, what data have you got? That's the first place to start. Again, I have conversations with businesses all the time and they're like, yeah, we've got a spreadsheet sat somewhere and it's got like 3,000 emails in it. And I'm like, where is it? Like, get it into a platform. So look at your data, pick your platform. I would always, again, we're Klaviyo partners. I would always say use Klaviyo, a platform like Klaviyo. Yes, it's an e-commerce email marketing platform, but it also has capabilities to just become an email marketing platform if you're not selling a product direct to consumer.
Is it expensive, that sort of thing?
Same price as MailChimp. I would say they're pretty comparable in terms of pricing. Again, I used to love MailChimp. When those adverts used to come on the telly, like bright
Always.
yellow with the monkey. And I'd be like, oh, I just love MailChimp. It's so good. But I think, and don't quote me on this because I might get into trouble, but I think there's definitely a market where it's been left behind a little bit. And again, I'm going to go to a conference tomorrow. MailChimp are going to be running it. I'll be really interested to see comparably like how Klaviyo and MailChimp now are together, whether MailChimp are going down more a B2B route and whether Klaviyo is sticking that consumer route. It'll be really interesting. But from a platform perspective, I would say go with Klaviyo.
What are the differences that you found between the two platforms? Because we use MailChimp.
Do you? Oh,
Yeah.
sit over there.
But we're obviously marketing, well, B2B and
B2B.
B2C, both
Yeah.
really. So what are the differences?
So I think Klaviyo is a platform. The reason I push it so much is we work with brands a lot where we set up their email platform for them. So we'll go in, we'll pull their data in, we'll set up all their templates, we'll do their automation. And then it's almost as though I can hand it back to them with confidence and go, I know that you can now manage your email marketing without our support continuously. Whereas when you're in MailChimp, I think that's slightly more disjointed. So when I say that, I mean pop-ups they're not difficult in MailChimp, but they're more difficult, especially from a targeting perspective. And that's why Klaviyo, again, is really powerful. You can pull customers out based on segments. So I only want to show this pop-up to a customer who has visited this webpage, purchased this product, done this, and they're now in this segment, for example. So it's really detailed on the data specifics that you can do. And I think as well, MailChimp templates, I don't personally like the MailChimp templates that much. I think Klaviyo, again, I remember, again, go back to when I started my career in marketing, I was HTML coding emails. And I remember those days like they were yesterday. And I'd be like, oh my God. And then you'd send it and you'd be like, oh, it's broken. Whereas Klaviyo, you can do all of that within the platform. You don't have to code it. It's all customizable, but in a non-HTML fashion. So it just gives you more capabilities, I think.
Yeah, that's all fair enough, because everything you're describing, I was like, yeah.
Yep.
I actually create the email from scratch every time and never use a template. And
Which you should be. You absolutely should be just doing a master template. And again, what we do with clients is when we set up a template, we might do header, footer, and like 6 different blocks. So whether that's bestsellers, whether that's, a blog block, whatever that might be. And that sounds really simple when I'm saying that. But the key to that is customizable blocks, so that you could just then go, I'm going to pull this block into this email. I'm going to pull this block in, and then I'm going to edit it and tweak it around.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really versatile as a platform. But going back to your question, it would be data. It would be set up your platform, pick Klaviyo, always pick Klaviyo, and then set up your templates, like create some standardized templates. So whether that's a newsletter template, which is what I would normally create first, and then set up an automated template. So when I say that, I mean like a welcome flow template, for example. And then if you are doing B2B marketing, I would also say set up what we would call a plain text email as well. I think this gets overlooked quite a lot from brands. And again, I had a conversation yesterday with, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I had a conversation yesterday with a lovely food and drink brand who focus predominantly in Q4. So that's when they sell the majority of their products, really tasty products, may I add. And she was saying she was still manually going out to her B2B wholesale audience. I was like, so you sit with your inbox in front of you and you press send 100 times. And she was like, yeah, I do that. I was like, oh, I need to help you. And I think from a Klaviyo perspective, you can pull in a plain text email that looks as though it's coming directly from your inbox. And that's where actually it really helps as well. So set up those 3 templates, your newsletter, your welcome flow, and then a plain text so that you can market to multiple people authentically and personally as well. I think that's it.
That's okay. We've got a lot to do. It feels like we've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
Content wise, why would you say those 3 things are the main? So understand the plain text, newsletter. For any business, why does that work, and why would that be the first template that you would create?
So again, take it back. Who's your audience? First step is, who's your audience? Who am I trying to talk to? So we're a business, we communicate with other businesses. If as a business, we just sent newsletters that came from the KW marketing team, that's never going to resonate with our audience of food and drink buyers, founders, those people at the heart of what they're doing, because they want those personalized journeys. They want me to call them up and say, hey, have you heard about this new Klaviyo update? Or have you heard about what's going on social media? They want that personalization. So make every journey personal and make sure you think customer first. Again, I always say, especially I do quite a lot of teaching. So I do quite a lot of workshops with clients as well, where I go and I teach them how to use Klaviyo. That's another massive thing that we do. And I think the first place I always start with is a blank piece of paper. And I say, think about your customer. How does your customer come into your business? What are those touch points? And what of those touch points can we automate? And that's the first place to start. Because again, you could spend 5 hours, 10 hours doing newsletters a month. Are they actually doing what you want them to do? So always take it back, always go back to your customer. If they come into your business via, whether it's a form, whether they buy a product and they go into your database, whatever that customer journey is, which bits can you automate with your email funnel? Which bits can you make personal, even though you're automating it? And that's normally a really good place to start.
Okay. So it's thinking about, you've literally the first point of call is think about your customers,
Always.
what they want from you.
Yeah.
And then that's how you can create the journey.
100%. Because again, your customers are, I do a lot of listening. So I recently spoke to one of our food and drink founders, and she was telling me about sneezing. I don't know whether you know what sneezing is.
No.
So when you're a sneezer, yeah, I know you're both looking at me like, when you're a sneezer, okay, so you tell somebody about this product, you become a sneezer. So you try a product at a food festival, you go and taste a product, whatever it might be. And then you love it and you become a brand advocate. You're a sneezer because you're then going to go and tell loads of people about this product. So then how can you make your sneezers go into your digital world, into your digital sphere, and actually use those guys to map, but sneeze digitally? It's more difficult because it's not that word of mouth piece. And that's where then thinking about your customer, thinking about, okay, so they might go on social, they might see a UGC reel, they might then go, oh, actually, I'll go to the website. They might then get caught by a pop-up, they might fill in their data, and then it maps all the way back round. So it's just thinking about your customer always first and listening to them as well. Again, I do like loads of listening, and like every time I'm like a computer, like listening to what everybody's saying and the wording as well, because that's really important. And thinking about the wording you're using when you're communicating in email. I think, again, go back 5 years, it was like robot driven, wasn't it? Like, hello, hope you've had a good day.
Hello, name.
Yeah,
bracket.
first, yeah. And it was a bit like cold.
Yeah.
Whereas the campaigns that are winning right now from an open rate, click rate, revenue perspective are personal.
Super personal, yeah. I've
What's
seen
the
so
weather
many
like?
posts about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like, and again, in Klaviyo, you can do things like, what's the weather like? And you can pull in the weather parameters.
Really?
It's really freaky.
Yeah.
What's your location? You can pull in like dynamic content based on your location. If a customer's viewed a product and we've got similar products that are going to resonate with them, we can pull those in dynamically within one campaign. So data needs to be at the heart, but also your customer needs to be at the heart.
I'm not so good at like the sequencing and all that sort of stuff. That's like quite you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm quite interested in like the content of these emails more so, and like the little tips and the tricks of all the things that you do within that, because you mentioned the personal side. Yeah, that's a huge part. Like just yesterday I actually saw a post on LinkedIn I interacted
Wasn't
with.
mine.
No, it wasn't yours.
Oh,
no,
thank
and
God.
it said, would you prefer a personal post, short and sharp,
Yeah.
like organic, unscripted sort of thing, or something really like militant, very like laid out, so it's very much like a mailer sort of thing.
Yeah.
And everyone says it's a personal post. They would rather that to like feel like it comes from people. And I've actually just thought of a really good case study of that. So like, what are the little? Shall I tell you the case study?
Yeah.
Again,
You
I
can't just say that and not tell us.
Well, it's not email marketing, so I don't know how relevant it is. But do you know Ben's Gutters?
No.
Have you seen this? This was mental, actually. We got a little slip through it was like they were reading our minds. So I don't know how. We got a bit of a problem with our gutters at the moment.
Here?
No, just my
at
house.
Home.
And I've been just too lazy and put it off. I haven't sorted it for ages. And then got a little slip through the letterbox, handwritten, like just a little slip like this. And it was like a letter headed footer and header and all that, and it said, hi, we're in the neighborhood, blah blah blah, Ben's Gutters, let me know if you need any help, with the mobile number. And it was written in like permanent marker or felt tip, and I was like, oh, that's brilliant, like I will call that. I haven't yet, but it was like 2 weeks ago, but I will in time. And like, because it was so personal, and like we've had a few of those, like you get the newsletters and like the really like fancy stuff, and you don't even look at them anymore, do you? Because it was so personal. I was like, right, yeah, Grace, we'll definitely call that, put that on the kitchen, I'll get around to it. But then I saw on LinkedIn somebody up north had exactly the same letter, and it turns out they've
done a mailer.
They created it like that.
They wanted to do that.
Yeah, so it looks really organic and original, and
Love
just put it around the country.
Wow.
And I was like, that is flipping so clever. I thought it was so original. I thought they'd literally handwritten it. But then it turns out everyone around the country is getting them, sort of thing. So like, I know it's not email marketing, but it's exactly the same sort of case, isn't it? About how like the personal side can influence somebody from doing things. Because if I wasn't lazy, I would have picked the phone up and called them and thought they were actually just a one-man band around our little 300-person village.
Yeah. And instead of those glossy brochures, like direct mail definitely still has its moment. And I think direct mail in line with email, again, that's a conversation I have a lot with smaller brands, medium-sized businesses, because they're like, I can put leaflets through the door and reach 50,000 people, or I can stick to my existing database of engaged and nurtured customers and I've only got 2,000, why would I not do the 50,000, Kate? And I'm like, well, there is an argument to be said there, isn't there? Because these are your customers in your pot. They know who you are. They've either purchased from you before or they've got an intent to buy. And the 50,000 is a cold audience that could just get lost. So direct mail and email, definitely, you know, they do still have that argument between the two of what's most effective. But I think, you know, going back to thinking about content and personalization, when I send an email from Klaviyo and I have clients and future prospect clients, previous clients replying to the email, I'm like, marketing's worked. It's seriously worked, because it's when you're like, oh, you know, the weather's doing this, or, you know, it's really just timely as well. Like, so thinking from a content perspective, we would map out an email plan. And I think in one of my talks, especially at Building Brands, one of my points was create an email plan and stick to it. I think until you have the data to know what your audience likes and what they resonate with, you can't say it's going to work or it's not going to work. And again, something that really annoys me is I think, and then I pause and I'm like, no, especially from my team when they say it, I'm like, we can't say I think, we need to say the data is telling us this. And it's the same from a founder perspective. You know, they come in and they go, I think our customers want this. And I'm like,
well, what do they actually?
Well, do they actually want that? Like, let's look into Google Analytics. Let's look into your email platform. Let's look into everything. Is that really what they want? And again, that's a really important part that you do. You don't just do the verbal listening, but you do the digital listening as well before you plan an email calendar.
Is that very different when you get a client's customers come to you thinking one thing? Is it always very different to what they actually think? Like, does it happen a lot?
A lot. And it's a challenge because it's educating, teaching, advising them on, you know, why they're wrong or why they need to look at things slightly differently. And the only way we can do that is with data. You know, who am I to tell a business owner or a founder, apart from my years of experience in marketing, who am I to tell them that they don't know their product as much as I know the digital space, right? It's always that battle.
But you've got the evidence to back it up,
with the
you?
data, 100%. And that's the only thing that we can prove it with.
And that's why they come to you.
Well, there's still always a battle. But again, it goes back to, you know, we're in 2025. I think the food and drink space is really interesting because founders are younger. They are definitely younger. And again, they're more knowledgeable. They've got AI at their fingertips, and the market is definitely more aware of digital marketing than ever before. And I still have people coming to me saying, Kate, I've got all of this stuff at my fingertips, but I just don't know like where to go, where to start. And again, we had our fuel event last week and all of the conversations in the room were, what's your one piece of advice that I need to focus on when I go back to the office? And I'm like, your email marketing needs to come first. And that is so key because there's still so many people that aren't using it.
But with like email marketing, and tell me what you do with this, but like you've got to have a good brand to then the email marketing to work for them to actually recognize, you know, the content within the email for them to want to engage with the brand as well. So the better the brand, the better the engagement with the marketing as well. So do you do much on that brand side or?
Yeah, I think I think we're quite lucky in our industry because we work in food and drink. They've already got a great brand.
You can't really have a shit brand.
Do you know what I mean? Like they've got a great product and they've got a great brand. So actually we're winning already. I'm not saying 10 out of 10, like maybe 9 out of 10 times.
Do you see that direct correlation between what you think is like a really good brand and like better engagement? Is that pretty obvious? Or?
What a question. Yes, I do. And I think the bigger, and this is where my team would be like screaming in my ear, the bigger their social presence as well, that really helps. But I think what brands really struggle with is going down I need 10,000 followers on Instagram. I need this many followers on TikTok. And they get so fixated on that. And then when I sit in a room with them in a workshop environment, I'm like, so what are your followers actually doing for you? Like, are they making you any money? And they're like,
or is it just a number?
And they are posting their, like on their channels 4 times a week. It might be taking them 8 hours. And I'm like, God, for 8 hours of time every week, you could be doing email automation, email newsletters, and you could be generating direct income. And they're like, what? So it is an educational piece as well, I think.
I suppose it's so hard to find the balance though of, because like Jev said, I do agree, you do still have to do that, don't you? And like you were saying, you do still have to post on social media to build the brand.
Yeah, I
But-
think it's consistency though, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, if you agree to post twice a week on socials and you put the goals in, and again, that's another key point, right? So any digital marketing activity needs to have a goal. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? And again, that's something I see all the time. I say to brands like, why are you posting? What do you want to achieve out of this? And as part of that educational piece, I think it always is bottom line sales revenue, get me more money in the door. That's why I'm doing marketing. But I think sometimes as businesses grow, they lose that and they go into, oh, followers are really important, but they don't map the funnel back. They don't say, okay, so my followers are really important because I'm going to funnel them into my email platform, which means I'm then going to go back and make loads of money from them. So I think if you're consistent and you post and you say, I'm going to post twice a week, I'm not interested in followers. I'm actually interested in engagement rate, which is far better than followers. My team will be like, yes, she said that. And then you go onto your email platform and you say, okay, so I want to make X amount of revenue and my open rate and click rate needs to be above, I don't know, 60%, 70%, whatever that might be. That's where you need to start. But with any small to medium sized business, it's always going to be a juggle and you've got to balance out the activities that work. So again, if you think about your funnel, and I think I spoke about this at Building Brands, but not in a lot of detail, but we did at Fuel last week. Your funnel is like a triangular shape. Okay. So at the top, it's so wide, and that's where you get your bulk of people into your funnel. So think about ads, like paid advertising, for example. You might turn on a traffic campaign. So that's just getting bulk of people to your website to funnel them in. If they go to your website and you don't have a pop-up, you might as well just chuck money at a wall and just say, right, just have my £500 Meta, Facebook, I don't want it back. Yeah. But if you do have a pop-up, you're funneling your audience into your world, into your digital space, and you could data capture them via your pop-up, or even better, they might purchase. Once they get to that point, the funnel goes even thinner and you go into your retention piece at the bottom. What happens to them then? Like, do they purchase once and just get left?
Yeah.
You should then be nurturing them to get them to purchase again or to come back into your world again. If you're a service-based business, I know I talk a lot about selling a product and D2C and, you know, e-commerce, but I think the same applies for a B2B business, right? If they go into the funnel at the top and you might do a LinkedIn ad, for example, then you might get to your website and you might have a pop-up for whatever industry you're in. I don't know, some free content on something, like we do a trends report. Like, you know, we sit in food and drink. People want to know what's at the forefront of the industry. So we do a trends report. What happens to those people when they get further down that funnel? And that's where I think the magic happens, because that's where you work them really hard.
Yeah.
And if you're getting a cost per acquisition at the top of the funnel of like £1, £2, whatever that might be to get them in, then when they get to the bottom and they purchase again, that makes your cost per acquisition really exciting, because you're like, my God, they've made me twice, not just once, what I thought they were going to.
It's really interesting, because we always talk about the funnel and everyone talks about the funnel, but nobody actually like breaks it down.
No.
I feel like only we have just started to realise the practical application
We've
of
just
our
done
funnel.
that.
Yeah.
Like, but it's taken ages,
It's
isn't it?
taken ages.
And like
yeah.
like for example, well, what do? You could do it with the salary survey
Yeah.
that we do, because obviously we're a recruitment business.
Yeah.
And people want to know what their salaries are in comparison to everybody else. We
Yeah.
put it out there, you know, numerous different places, haven't we? Top of the funnel. But then when those people get in there, you know, and they do ask for it, right, there's
Yeah.
another call to action. So then they get another call to action, and they basically get call to actions until we actually get them a job almost. Don't
Yeah.
we? That's
Yeah.
the ideal. But we never got past that.
Middle stage,
Well, no, not even the middle stage. We only ever got to the top of the funnel, didn't we?
Yeah.
which is that discovery stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we never like processed it down. So now we've got a few more different call to action. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like I said at the start, people always talk about this funnel, but like maybe get a little bit stuck on that first stage to then keep going with it.
Yeah.
They only go one step.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we did, because we basically used the funnel and spoke about it more so in a branding sense rather
Yeah.
than actual turning it into revenue.
Yeah. And that's really key as well, because when you do think about that funnel, so what we do quite a lot is we work with brands on email, but also from an ad perspective, because they both complement each other really, really
Yeah.
nicely. If your foundations are in place with your email marketing and you've done everything you need to do, your pop-ups triggering, your automation's flowing, your newsletters are going, ads then become a really valuable asset, because that's how you just get volume into your email marketing, into that retention piece. But what we see brands doing quite a lot is coming to us saying, Kate, we've had our ads on, we've not really made a lot,
Yeah.
and they don't work for us.
It's just being used as branding, isn't it?
Correct.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
And
exactly
that's
that.
exactly what we did.
Yeah.
I've got a good example of that, really, and I don't know if it's relevant or
Is
not.
this
'Cause
another gutter example?
Yeah, it's a little bit guttery, but it's actually in your space big time, and it's Jason Sourdough.
Yeah.
And they've been really good recently, and it does lead on to a question, but we got massively into it, still get it like every week, flipping love it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you start getting the social media posts, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they've never captured my data from an email side of things.
Ooh.
So they could be doing more there, but that's the question. How do business capture my data, get my email address,
Yeah.
so that they can ping all these deals to me and all this other sort of stuff to
Yeah.
actually impact the sales?
So, what a question. There's loads of different ways you can do it, right? And I think being subliminal is the best way to do it. Like, if you are in front of your customer and you're going, give me your data, they're not going to do it. So you need to be tactful, you need to be really clever, you need to be strategic with it as well. So if you,
Give them what they want.
do they have a shop?
Yeah, no, they don't. I think they
All online?
wholesale. Yeah, I do believe it is. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's quite expensive bread, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like Waitrose. Yeah, and I'm trying to think I'm trying to answer my own question about how could I give my details to them? What would they have to do to give my details to them?
Loads of things. On their product, they could have a QR code. The QR code could go to their website. It could be an incentivized QR code, win something. I don't know. So you could do it in a competition capacity. It could be we're running a campaign of somebody who creates a video using our bread or whatever. Now, I've got a really good example of this. So you might have heard of them before, the Bold Bean Co. So
I think I have actually.
Amelia Christie
That's
Miller,
the
she
one,
was
yeah.
on Dragon's Den.
I actually saw her on LinkedIn before I knew she was on Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
She's obviously doing something quite right there.
So she is she's a bean fanatic.
She's not bold.
She's not
She's
bold.
not bold.
She's a bold bean fanatic. Such a mouthful. But she is a massive advocate for branding. She's like, if your brand is really strong and people join the revolution of, we're trying to create beans that are healthy and we're trying to shape the market of beans, because let's face it, Heinz have just totally taken over that category. She has come in and she's saying, like, there are healthy beans on the market, and she's trying to re-educate her audience. So she's taking market share away from a Heinz bean, buyer. But she always talks about your brand and how your brand should be at the heart of it. Now, she never directly sells to her consumers. I would very doubt that she ever sends a 10% off to her customers via email. I would doubt that she has a 10% pop-up coming up on the website. Like, that is not part of her brand ethos. That's not how she communicates. But what she does do is she gives value to her audience. So she would give them recipes on how to use her beans. She would educate them via UGC content, via socials, chefs using her products. So her strategy is very different. And she always talks about, and again, I met her at Whole Foods Activation, and she's fantastic because she is her brand. Like, you can feel beans coming out of her skin. Like, she's brilliant. But I think what she does really well is she listens to her audience, because she knows that, for somebody to buy a jar of bold beans, the price point's quite high compared to Heinz baked beans. So are you looking at a Heinz baked bean customer, or are you trying to convert that customer to a higher product? You probably are. So you're probably looking at, an affluent audience. So actually, they probably do watch Saturday Kitchen with James Martin, or they probably do,
And they're not that worried about a discount code.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not worried about it. So she listens to her audience really well. And that's really important, because, it's not a one strategy fits all with email. It's always a, make sure you know what your customer wants and test, learn and optimize it. Again, with pop-ups, it's really important that we do this quite a lot. We put on an offer as one option. So you can do A/B split testing in Klaviyo, which again is another massive factor that I didn't say earlier, where you can put a pop-up with an offer, but then you can do a pop-up that's slightly softer in tone. You could give away recipes, you could give away something else, and you can see which one resonates better with your audience. I think the key to that is, if you're a small to medium-sized business, and I keep going back to that, think about revenue. Like, you're on email to make money. That's the bottom line of it. Your time is really limited. Your resource is probably pretty limited in marketing. Do activities that generate income is basically where you need to be sat. But you can always test, learn and optimize with what you're doing. And that's where the sweet spot comes in as well. I think, with newsletters, pop-ups, automation, constantly run tests. I go in with our clients every week and I still do our email marketing at KW Marketing. I shouldn't be, because I should be like running the business, right? But it's my passion and I genuinely love it. And I love like geeking out and getting really nerdy with the data, because that's where all that magic happens, in terms of that's where that revenue starts to increase. And then your client's like, oh my God, what did you do last week? Because our revenue's like doubled. And I'm like, oh, I was just testing and optimizing some titles and some campaigns. And that's really, really important that you do that. And you don't just leave things as I do it once and I leave it. You should, I do it, I test it, I leave it for a bit, and then I tweak
I'm just
it.
going to summarize a few things there then, because there's quite a lot in there. Well, just for me more so.
Go for it.
But like I was saying, how first question was, how do you work out, what your target audience wants? And then just testing, A/B testing, constantly changing things. Yeah. Another big part, which we sort of skimmed over, is, and this is in our last podcast as well with Hannah, is, actually have a plan and stay consistent to it.
Yeah.
Because, we've fallen guilty of it all the time. I bet loads of other businesses do, but you've got to be intentional with the plan, but then you've actually got to stick to the plan and stop sort of chopping and changing.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave room to be reactive though, I think.
Yeah.
Like, make sure. So again, we normally do like bi-weekly newsletters for our clients. I think every week is probably slightly too much from a comms perspective. Not saying personalized sends can't go in the middle of that, but be consistent with your bi-weeklies, keep them in there. If something happens and you need to be reactive, that still leaves room for you to be reactive.
That was going to move on to my next question, because how often are we sending emails out? Because you can fall into the trap of just pinging emails out every day sort of thing, can't you? And what percentage, if it is a percentage, or if it's, a bit of a moving figure, but like what percentage of it is, right, we'll very much sequence, we'll do this every month, or like bi-weekly, like you said, with the newsletter, opposed to a little bit more reactive where you're chucking out, I don't know, deals, let's say, or like, something that you've just thought of to chuck out.
Yeah. I think that all depends on whether you've got automation running.
Okay.
If you've got automation running, and when I say automation, that's things like if your customers haven't engaged with you for a certain period of time, what happens to them? Are you cleansing them? Are you just leaving them dormant? You should be running an automation, which is what we would call a win-back campaign. So what happens if they've not opened an email, clicked an email, visited your website, or purchased a product, for example? You push them into an automation or a flow where you try and re-engage them back into your brand. So again, if you're a consumer-based product, and that's easier because you can start to ask them questions, offer them a discount, talk to them, get them to go to your socials, whatever that is. If you're a B2B business, slightly more difficult, but in that automation piece, do you have a step where you add in a phone call? Do you pick up the phone? And you can map that into your automation and say, okay, so don't contact them for 20 days, but send me a note to say I need to book a call with them, or, pick up the phone to them. And if they don't re-engage, cleanse them, get rid of them. Because again, something else that I see a lot is brands going, I've got a database of 30,000. It's amazing. And then my question to them is, well, how many of those 30,000 are actually engaged and active? Because how many are opening and clicking? If it's like 1%, well, you're just wasting money again. So you'll hear, I always talk about like budget and money, because when you're a smaller business, that's so important. And that's where we sit. And that's where we try and just maximize those budgets, I think.
So it's all about engagement rather than like total number of followers.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, what are the main metrics that that we should be looking out for with email marketing?
So with email, your open rate and your click rate absolutely need to be monitoring those. And if people aren't opening and clicking, you need to start funneling them out into automations. If they still, after like a 4-sequence flow, so 4 email flow, if they still haven't opened and clicked over, say, a 6-month period, I would just
That's how you get rid
mark
of
them
them.
out.
That's
Yeah.
the sort of, yeah.
Absolutely. And again, another really good example of that is, so do you guys know Boundless activated snacking?
No.
No. So Kathy, again, she is a fantastic founder. I met her a couple of years ago. She had like leopard print trousers on. She was just, honestly, she's goals. She's literally goals. But she always talks about how she had a database, I'm pretty sure a large one, maybe like 40,000 people. And when you go into a retailer or a wholesaler, so say you have a food product, you're going to go into Whole Foods or you're going to go into Ocado, for example. The first thing that they ask you is, number one, what is your engagement rate on your social media? Not what is your following, what is your engagement rate? And the second thing they ask is, how big is your database? So they're the two key things that are really, really important. And from an email perspective, it's so easy to go, my database is like 30,000. But they've done a really bold thing where they've culled everybody who hasn't engaged, and they've like, I think they've got a third left of their database, which is a really bold, brave move. But they are a challenger brand, they're a startup, and they're trying to make big waves, right? So for them, it's more important that their audience is actively talking to them and engaging with them. So they're doing loads of pop-ups. They're, going around the country, all of the food festivals, everything. And they're trying to top it up with people who are what she calls sneezers. So she's trying to find people who are engaged in her brand. And that's a really brave move. But I think it's a really important one because, again, in a platform like Klaviyo, you end up paying for your subscribers. Or if they're not engaged and they're not actively,
You're wasting money, aren't
you're
you?
just wasting money.
Am I right to say when you separate that out though, you don't have to get rid of those completely. It's just a different sort of sequence and a different campaign to try and get them back to be sneezers and get them back on board and engaged, rather than because you'd go down different routes. Is that right? Or would you just get rid of them?
So your win back flow would be, have they opened and clicked an email? If yes, put them into the win back flow. If no, keep them out of it.
And they get 2 separate campaigns, different content. There's different objectives to them, isn't there?
Exactly that. And then at the end of the win back flow, if they still haven't opened or clicked, you would suppress them, which means their data still sits in Klaviyo, you're just not actively paying for it. Which you can do in mail, you can do in loads of other platforms. But I think it's really, really important that, again, if you've got ads on, especially if you've got ads on and you're top funneling it, trying to get more people in the top of the funnel, that you are also cleansing the bottom of the funnel. Really important.
It's an interesting point. I've seen that even like on LinkedIn as well, like from a social media following, is when I first started posting more and more, I would actually get loads of impressions. I got loads of impressions, but I get like 2 or 3 likes or something like that. But now it's like the other way around. I get 30 comments, loads of likes, all this sort of stuff, but no impressions. It's weird. But that's not a bad thing, I suppose, because then it's going to my people that are engaging. I'm actually like communicating with my brand and like my target audience, rather than it just going out to a load of randomers. More so, isn't it?
Which is really important because, like I said right at the beginning, you can own your database. You can't own your social feed, you can't own your followers, you can't own any of that. And just going back to your point about how you can get more data, one thing that we see works really well is doing, and you've probably all seen them, you've probably all entered them, is a competition on social, right? So you like, share and tag and you're like, oh, I'm going to win free food. Why would I not do that? So I'm all over them all the time. But one thing I always try and say to brands is when they come to us, why are you not doing that as an email version? So for example, it's still the same mechanism. You still get the reach via social. So like, share, tag, but you then send them to a landing page on your website and get them to fill in their data, because I think people are, pre-COVID time, I think people would just give away their email willy-nilly. I don't think they really were that bothered about it. But I think actually now people are a lot more considered with giving their data away. So you've got to make it interesting for them. Like, is it something that they want to do? And again, if you partner with, if you're a brand, I'm going to use popcorn again. If you're a popcorn brand and your audience is Kate Williams, she's in her 30s, she loves food, she loves going to Greendale, whatever that might be, you partner with a brand with a similar demographic who, I don't know, it might be a chocolate brand, whatever it might be, and you can start to share audiences with them. So if they've got a database of 50,000, you've got a database of 30,000, you both share those databases via that competition. And again, that's a relatively cheap way of growing your database. So you don't always have to, I think what I'm saying with that is you don't always have to throw loads of money at stuff. You
Yeah.
just have to be strategic.
Feels as though what I'm learning is that with email marketing, you've just got so much more control over everything. Like I think a lot of people say with social media, for example, we all know it's great. We all know it does a great job, but it is much harder
Yeah.
to kind of quantify your output and see how it's
It's less
coming in.
quantifiable and less intentional, I think. As
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Whereas I just feel like with email marketing after this chat, it's just you're in control of
Yeah.
everything a lot more.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it also gives you the platform to, and I keep going back to your audience, but it gives you the platform to speak to your audience. So, that's where things like surveys come in. That's where you can ask them more about what they want to see, what do they want more of? And I think we do this really well. And it's something I work so hard on within our agency is having something for everyone wherever they are in their digital journey. Okay. So what I mean by that is, I started as a consultant and then we grew into an agency, but we've created something called our Food Marketing Club. And that's where we have founders in there and they're learning it themselves because they're at the stage where they still want to be in control of their marketing, but they might need a little bit of support. And I think everybody's in a different journey. Some people come to me, they're like, Kate, I just need you to set up Klaviyo, get us going, send the newsletters and just get on with it. And other people come to us and they say, I want to learn, I want you to teach us, because everybody's just in that different stage of understanding.
So those are the two different services that you offer.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's loads.
Yeah. But I suppose those are the obvious ones.
Yeah,
aren't
so it's
they?
either done for you or done with you,
Yeah.
basically. So we either do it with them and we train them and we teach them, or we do it for them. And when we do it for them, that's when I geek out on all the data. But I think it's just really important that you and us as an agency, we have an offering where there is something for everybody, whatever stage of their digital growth journey they're on, because that's what we focus on. We focus on growing. And that's why I talk about revenue a lot, growing online sales, because then that makes your marketing quantifiable. And that's probably why email's at the heart of that. And I'm not saying social isn't. Again, my team at Christmas, they give me life, because my lounge, it was just full of like popcorn. I had one of my team members on the top of the sofa in Christmas pajamas. And I think she went viral on TikTok over Christmas. And it was great. And then I said to them, from a social perspective, that's really, really great. But how can we turn those social followers into paying loyal customers for that brand? And that's where the email strategy and the social strategy go together really, really well. So I think social is that creative side, and I think email is the strategic side. And if you align them both together, again, I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, one without the other is
difficult.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think in 2025 as well, people want to see more real life content, less polished content. So I think on social, if you're being more real and you're using a product or you're showing who you are really authentically, again, if you map that back into email, that's where you can then convert them. You acquire them via whether it's ads or organic reach, and then in email you retain them, convert them and nurture them.
In terms of like specifics, what sort of thing would you build campaigns around, or like sequences around? Obviously newsletter, that's one, but for people that are like really right at the start of their journey, what would you suggest?
So again, it depends what space you sit in. I think from a consumer perspective, welcome flow, absolutely do a welcome flow, because that's how you're getting people into your brand. You're telling them who you are, what you're about, follow you on social, whatever that might be. I think also from a consumer perspective, what we see works really well is your abandon browse flow. So that's where somebody views a product, they don't put it in their basket, but they just disappear. And the tracking and the API and the functionality within Klaviyo means that you can see what they're viewing, which is really great. Especially if your customer is a busy customer, they've got kids, whatever, you know, you always get pulled away when you're buying stuff, don't you? Right. And if somebody reminded me, I'd be like, oh, thank God, like I'm just going to sit and have a coffee and
I've had a few
rebuy
of them.
that.
I've had a few of them.
It's freaky.
I'm not sure if they've worked, but they definitely draw your attention back to it.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I should go back to do that.
And what we see in the market right now is that is the second best performing flow from a revenue
Yeah, I'm not
perspective.
surprised. Yeah.
So it just
I
pulls
had
back
it
the audience.
recently, but I actually obviously just give all my data away at any given moment. But I gave them my email address and my phone number to get like 10% off, I think, and put it in my basket. And I did, for some reason, got pulled away, didn't end up doing it. Then it was the next day and they actually text me. They didn't email me.
Love that.
With more of a discount. They were like, oh, we've noticed that you're interested, but for some reason you didn't purchase. Here's an extra 5%. And then I just bought it straight away. Yeah. Which I thought was great.
So that is where, and that's a really good point actually, because you've just brought up SMS marketing. So SMS and email marketing definitely go hand in hand. And again, I think what we see from a small to medium sized business is they come to us and they've seen about SMS marketing and they're like, Kate, we need to do this. And I'm like, so have you got an email database? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, let's start with email first and then let's bolster in SMS. But SMS works really well because when you put an automated flow in or you create an automated flow within a platform like Klaviyo, you can either do an email or a text and do that all in one flow. So then, or you could test them both off each other. Which one works better? It does an email at this point in time work better or does an SMS work? And when I'm saying work better, does it work better from an open rate, click rate and a revenue perspective? But I think, again, it depends on your audience, because I think from an SMS perspective, an older audience wouldn't like that.
No.
A younger audience, a Gen Z audience, they would love that.
And SMS, I think, is still like, if I were to get that, is it still like still new enough and surprising enough to think, oh, that's clever. Do you know what I mean? And think, oh, okay, I might do that then.
What I loved about it is I don't check my emails as regularly as I would just look at my phone and it would just pop up.
Yeah,
so
who gets a text nowadays?
It was so easy.
No one. But would you open a text if it was really personalised? Of course you would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So again, it goes back to, you can still be really personalised even if it's automated. Be clever with it. Like be really clever with it.
Yeah.
I personally don't like texts from brands because I feel as though it's an invasion
personal,
of my privacy.
I know what you mean.
So I never give my mobile number away. So I'm really interested to hear that you gave yours away for your discount. And that goes back to your audience, because again, my team, one of the girls on my team, she gives away like everything, data to everything just for a discount. She's a discount hogger. But then she unsubscribes. As soon as she gets the discount, she unsubscribes and she goes. Whereas I'm totally different. I would buy into a brand and then I'd be immersed into their journey because I've bought the product, I can feel it, I love it, and I would just continue on the journey.
But you wouldn't give your data away as willy-nilly as somebody
else.
I
wouldn't. No. I definitely wouldn't.
I don't know. I think people are still pretty interested and are quite happy to give it away, because like the younger generation, they're always on their phones. They haven't seen the emergence of, technology and social media so much.
Yeah.
And they've just always brought up with it. It's just normal. Like, they don't think giving their number or email away is a big thing, because it's, they've always had it, they've always done it.
Yeah.
So like maybe they do give it away. But...
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, because again, I always ask questions about how people, and I'm such a weirdo. I sit and watch how people use their phones as well, because I think from an email perspective, it's really interesting, like what email platform they're using on their mobile. Is it Mail? Is it Gmail? Is it Microsoft? Like how are they engaging with those emails? Or do they wait till they get to their desk if they're a professional and check it on, on a big screen? So again, it's really interesting when I asked my team and I said to them, so at what point do you check your emails during the day? Like, I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I check my emails and I clear them and I get rid of them so that I know when I'm at my desk, all the junk's gone and I've just got business to deal with. My team are totally different. I check my emails at the end of the day, and I'm not talking work emails. Like, I'm not saying they don't check their work emails, but I check my inbox at the end of the day. And I'm like, is your brain not filled with like everything that you've been doing from a client perspective? And their point was, no, because that's my downtime. That's when I'm like digesting content from other brands. And I'm like, I find that really weird, but they're Gen Zs and I'm, I'm a millennial. So I think there's just difference in how users and your users interpret your content at what times of day. And again, test that. Like, what are there better days to send? Are there different times of days where your audience engage with it better? Like, we see, especially in the consumer space, that first thing in the morning works really well. I'm talking like really early, like 6 a.m. sends, because then when it gets to 9 a.m., when your professional gets to their office, it's already in their inbox right at the top. Or is it in the evening? Like, founders are really busy and they probably sit down at 9 p.m. in the evening, and we're offline. Is that right? Probably not. We should be online. We should be talking to them, So I think it's, again, listen to your audience.
Yeah. I've just got a question about the content side of things. In terms of like businesses, marketers that don't have all the time in the world,
Yeah.
but want to do all of this stuff. They want to put out the newsletters in a bi-weekly sequence. They
Yeah.
want to be, putting in personalized automated ones in between. In terms of content and the actual content in the email, can you repurpose content that you've put on your social media and use that in your email marketing, or should it be
question.
fresh?
Yeah, really good question. And this is something that is so spoken about in the marketing industry, isn't it? It's like, don't make something five times over. If something performs really well, reuse it. So repurpose it. So for example, yesterday I created a blog. So off the back of the blog, we created a reel, we created a carousel, we then sent it via email to our audience. So repurpose the content as much as possible.
In different forms.
In different formats,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And especially, and I know we're talking about email, but even from an ad perspective, if something performs really well on your organic socials, use that for a paid ad. If a LinkedIn post performs really well and you've got a clear CTA on it, or you just want it for brand building, use that as an ad as well. But from a content perspective, what we always advise is obviously think about, from an SEO perspective, like think about those triggers. I'm going to go back to the funnel. Think about your funnel. How do your audience find you? If it's via Google, look at your blogs, look at your SEO, look at all of that stuff. How can you use that blog content in your email content? Could you get people back to your website? I think as well, going into 2025, the conversation I have a lot is, website. Somebody said to me actually a couple of weeks ago, "Oh, I think websites are dead." And I was like, sorry? I was like,
you what?
bold statement. I was like, websites aren't dead. Like, they should still be at the heart of your
You're just
business.
not using it.
You're just not using it properly. And he said, "Oh, well, I'm going to create like this viral social campaign." And I said to him, how are you going to capture data? Like, how are you going to grow your business without a database if you don't have a website? So there's all sorts of conversations that I hear, and there's all sorts of different spins on it. But I think your website needs to be at the heart of it. Think about your blog content, i.e. your SEO content, and how people are finding you, and then repurpose that. And when I say that, again, think about national days. That's a really good way of thinking about your email calendar. Like, map out the year. If you're a cheese brand, National Cheese Day needs to be your biggest campaign. Do you know what I mean? Do you offer a discount? Do you survey your customers? Do you give them a freebie? Like, how can you be creative with those national days and then build around that? Things like Christmas, Black Friday, all of those key shopping periods. And if you're a B2B business, I guess the same applies, but revert it backwards. Do you see, peaks and spikes in your conversions, in your, when your services are taken up by your customers, and really maximize on that? We are 8 years on Sunday for KW Marketing. Can't believe it.
Congratulations.
Oh, I can't wait to just like cheers a glass of champagne to that. 8 years. But I think we now have the data and insights more than ever before to know, our clients are going into event season right now. We know that actually March to April is really busy for us because we're supporting them going into that event season. When they're at the events, we don't hear from them. So for us, that's when we do our listening piece, when we go out and we feel the products, we taste the products, we see how they're showcasing their brand. And then we can see, how can we maximize that? So look at those seasonalities, create your email calendar around those seasonalities, and then layer on what your business goals are. You know, is there a revenue goal from email that you want to put in there? Is there an open rate goal? And just start to build a bit of a plan that you can stick to. And as you stick to it and as you get those sends going out the door, you'll see, are they working? Are they not? Do I need to adjust them, tweak them, and not just sit there and go, oh, I'm sending this newsletter for the sake of it. And I think building brands is a really good example of that. And Dave Briggs, I think, is absolutely fantastic. And next week I'm speaking at Plymouth, little plug there.
Nice.
But I think they're a really good example. Their newsletters are so long, but if you're engaged and immersed into what they're telling you, what they're talking about,
read it.
you're going to read it, right? And I'm engaged and I'm immersed into their brand, so I read every bit of that newsletter, even though I scroll 5-6 times over. It's that, is that what your audience want to see? And if it works, you know, their open rates are high, so don't change it if it's working.
Yeah.
That's good. Just for me, like going into like the nitty gritty of the actual email, you know, is there such a thing as like too short, too long, like, you know,
Subject line.
font, you know, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Are there any little tips and tricks with that sort of stuff?
Always.
Because that's what I get hung up on.
What shall I say?
Yeah, but I also overthink like the subject line. I change it like 6 or 7 times. I think, what's going on?
So don't change it, just test it.
Yeah.
Test multiple.
Yeah.
You can do that in MailChimp, but really difficultly. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at you like, test it. And I'm like, it's a bit more difficult. I think always go back to why you're sending your campaign. Again, if you're a consumer-based product, you're sending it to make money. If you're a B2B business, you're sending it to get leads 9 times out of 10. Or are you doing it to just give them some fluffy marketing information? I think always go back to why you're sending your campaign. If you're sending it to generate income and revenue, there should be one clear call to action, one button, and that button needs to be to the journey they need to be doing. So buying your product. If you start to divert them and you're like, I've got this great thing over here and read this over here, go and visit our socials here, you're just going to lose them. So I think always go back to why you're sending your campaign. Again, really, really good example. If you're sending a survey, send a survey email with one clear button to the survey. Don't go, oh, survey is here, and then go and buy this product and then do this.
If you want to do that,
Just don't do that. Like, keep it really simple. So for me, short email campaigns
short and sweet's better, is it?
Are better and perform better across the board.
Yeah, because I also think if you have to scroll too much, people just aren't interested.
People
in
are
that.
busy as
They
well.
They don't want to look at all that sort of
No,
stuff.
people are so time poor more than ever. There's more noise than ever in the digital space. Like, your social media goes off while you're reading an email. You get a notification on WhatsApp. Like, it's just busy. So you've just got to remember why you're sending your campaign.
So you always have your call to action at the top.
At the top.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because maybe I've been doing a lot of mine at the bottom.
So you know those little announcement bars that you can put at the top? I would always do like a 4-word summary about what the campaign is about at the top.
Short and sharp, really
100%.
simple, make it intriguing so they always go to the body
Yeah,
and call
exactly
to action
that.
as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Is that the same for the subject line as well? Like 4 words, 5 words minimum?
Subject lines are really tricky.
Yeah.
Oh, I love talking about subject lines.
I know, they're
bloody
really
love
tricky.
it. I love
He
it.
loves this conversation. We talk about it all the time.
It's brilliant. It's great though, isn't it? Because it's a psychological thing. You know, what do you create intrigue for them to go to the email? Do you make it obvious so they know what it is and they know what's going to happen in the email?
Do you do a pain point?
Do you do a pain point? Do you just leave it completely open? Do you do
It's
something
pain point
completely
for a win
random?
for me.
Is
Always
it?
pain point.
Give us
for
an
a win.
example. Go on.
So do people feel a certain way? So, you know, whatever your service, product, and again, I'm talking cross industries here, but I would always go pain point first because the pain point creates intrigue. And like you
so
say,
is it a question?
sometimes not. But I would always do a version for each. So I would always do a pain point. I would do a direct, this is what's in the email. And then I would always do, whether it's an offer or something else, I would always do like 3 minimum subject line tests for every campaign.
Oh,
so
if you're not doing
so you
that-
don't put all 3 in the same one.
No,
No, it's
I would
three.
create the
Test.
campaign 3 times
Yeah.
and I would test the different subject lines to the same audience. And within Klaviyo, that's like a click of a button. So you would just duplicate the campaign, put the different subject lines in. I think the preview text is really important though as well. I think if you send a plain text, you can only do a subject line. If you do a newsletter, you can do a subject line and a preview text. And I think the preview text is just as important because especially I use Gmail. So I use Gmail on my desktop, I use it on my mobile. Yes, I can see the subject line, but the preview's underneath it. So it's almost as though actually they're both just as important because they're prime time real estate on my phone, right?
When your newsletter goes out, is it newsletter in the body of the text, or is it a call to action? Press this to go to the newsletter, which is on my website.
No. So when you say newsletter, what do you mean? Do you mean a blog?
Well, anything, I suppose.
You're asking where does it live? Like, does the
that's
content live on the email?
Is it all on the
or
website? Or is it
on the
email?
website?
Sorry. Yeah, it's
on the website.
So they actually have, because then you can record actually people who have engaged with the
exactly
newsletter
that,
rather than just seeing it.
So I would call your newsletter your email.
Yeah.
Your email newsletter, and within that newsletter, I would link people out to different places on your website.
Okay.
So for example, if you were linking people, we've just done a podcast, I would link people to our website so that they can go and watch all the episodes,
which is on the website. So
but you give like a sneak preview in the email newsletter.
Exactly that. And I think that's really important because go back to that funnel. Our website is the hub of what we do. It tells everybody who we are. Why would I not want to get people back to that hub? An email, I have probably 3 seconds to get people engaged in the content and they're going to go. So if that button is not really, really obvious, they're just going to disappear.
It really is 3 seconds as well, isn't it?
It's
really
probably
is.
less than that now.
Yeah.
And a good way to gauge that as well, something else we do with our clients is don't think about it, go to Google Analytics and look at what is your average time spent on your site. If it's, 3 to 5 seconds, great, brilliant. You've got 3 to 5 seconds to make an impact when they land on your website. If it's less than that, you seriously need to up your game. You might need to make your pop-up come up quicker. And again, all of that data is there for you to look at and digest and be more strategic with it. But really, really important that you know those times. Things like, and I know we're talking about email, but it all goes back into it. If your website loads slowly and your average time spent on site is 3 seconds and your website's taking 6 seconds to load, no one's seeing anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same. All of these things go back into that funnel. If they see the email, they go to your website, but your website's not doing what it needs to do, just going to lose them again.
I've just got a good question about going back to the A/B testing, and I feel like this is a silly question, but I'm going to ask it because maybe other people out there might be wondering about this. So when you're saying about A/B testing, so the same campaign 3 times, different subject lines, but it's all going to the same audience. So does that audience then get split up into 3s and then it goes out to that group of people? But I don't know if I'm just being really picky about it, but what if certain type of the audience actually, they don't get the pain point subject line, but they do listen to more pain point subject line emails? So the open rate and click rate, am I just being really finicky about it? It just doesn't work like that.
Okay, I feel the same. I thought the same, but I suppose that's where it comes back to just trying it over and over
test
again,
it, try it. So again, in Klaviyo, when you create those split tests, you can either automate the way it splits the data, or you can split it manually.
Right.
So if you know a customer is a pain point customer, for example, or they've just bought a certain product, put them into a segment and test it with that segment.
Right, okay.
And again, what we see works really well. The more segments you create, the better your campaigns are going to perform. So don't just treat your pot as one. Absolutely do not treat your pot as one.
I've got
that is don't do that. And even if you've got 10 people in one segment, that doesn't matter. That means you're starting to segment, and that means you're understanding your data.
If those 10 buy every time, then you're
your VIPs, aren't they? But so yes, going back to your question, you can automate it. You can let Klaviyo do the hard work. And it's a robot, right? It's constantly learning. It uses AI to machine learn as well. So it will start to create its own segments. It will start to put people in different pots. Or you create your own and you don't trust the platform. But trust the platform. It knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
And then the next send, you might use 3 others. But always learn from which subject lines perform the best and then take that for the next campaign.
Right. Okay.
So if a pain point works, you know that that's the winner for the next campaign. Do 3 different pain points, and then you start learning along the journey.
Right.
And you do all of this for KW marketing as well? You still do all of that?
Yeah, I do. I love it as well.
Yeah.
One day, honestly, I need to just stop doing email marketing. But yeah, I do love it. I do it all.
What percentage of like your clients come from that? Like, is it a big part? Or?
It's huge for us. It's absolutely massive because, you know, it's built on, I used to work for Piper's Farm. I used to love working for Piper's Farm. And that's when my career really started in food and drink. And I used to do all of the food shows. And I'd be there like at the end of the weekend, 4 days in data collecting. And I'd be like, hello, I'm Kate. It's really nice to meet you. Like, and my cheeks would literally like be glued smiling. But that's where my love for sort of the food and drink industry started. So our database has been built up and nurtured for 8 years.
Yeah.
So I know exactly who's in there. And as we grow, you know, we're in a growth stage at the moment. As we grow, I'm not going to be able to have a handle on that data like I do now.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of, I need to let go of my beloved database. But also it's just making sure that we have a platform that can still be personalized when I do let go. But I do it out of pure, you know, geekiness, because I love geeking out on it. But I also do it because I love listening to our customers and I love listening to their pain points and, you know, where they are in the market. You know, we're in a constantly evolving world, even from a consumer perspective, even in a business perspective. And that listening piece, it helps us with our content creation. It helps us with what we're putting out. And you only need to get in a room full of people and you can hear the conversations that are happening. So yes, I do it for KW marketing and I probably will for a bit longer.
I suppose you do it for that long, you get such a cleansed database, don't you? You know exactly where the segments are. A question I've just thought of is, do you do this from a, you know, the marketing and the emails from a personal point of view, or is it very much from a business point of view? So does it go out as KW marketing or does it go out as Kate Williams?
So firstly, you need to sign up to our emails, number one. But 2, we do both because there's both of them have their place. So we do newsletters. So we do a newsletter that might be talking about a free webinar I'm running, or that might be talking about our podcast, because to me, that is value-driven content that we've created to help our audience. You know, I'm a big advocate to say, we're here to help people. We're here to give them those insights. We're here to tell them, you know, how they can do their emails, for example. But then if we've got an event and, you know, we want people to come to the event, that comes from me personally.
Does it? Yeah.
There will probably be a shift where, and again, as things get bigger and things grow, that, you know, that tactic might need to change. But me personally speaking to the audience, it works for us. It really works. Because it's personal. Big
shift, doesn't there, recently, of like founder-led content over business content. People engage more with the founder-led, but I suppose it really does depend on the scenario, doesn't it? That's like the most interesting part,
and the
like
content,
what's going out,
the content you're putting out as well. I think, you know, if I was to email Ria at Barboy with a blog, she'd be like, Kate, why are you sending me this? You know, because she'd be like, I can see this on your socials. I've seen it in a newsletter. But if I was to tell her that I'm at Dartmouth Food Festival coming up in the next few weeks, she'd be like, oh, great, I'll see you there. You know, so there's a difference.
Yeah. So again, this is not really me, but you'll know this. Like the Klaviyo, you can do that from different emails, and you can do it from your personal out to the same day.
You can do both. You can change the from. So I say Kate at KW Marketing. It comes directly from my email address.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, you know, it's personal. But it means within one platform, I can see what my users are doing. So I can see, have they opened an email from me, or have they opened a newsletter? Have they been in an automation? Like, have they been on our website? What pages have they viewed? What are they interested in? So that then makes, like you said earlier, sales and marketing makes that synergy really exciting, because it means, you know, we can then target those people who are more interested, more engaged.
Yeah.
And I think, just going back to your point about segmenting and your audience, again, what we see works really well. So Black Friday, we all love Black Friday. I think go back into COVID, Black Friday was really, really successful, wasn't it? And I think even now it's really successful. Black Friday last year in 2024 was brilliant. The year before, it was slightly up and down, I think, coming out of COVID, but last year was really good. And if you're a brand, I think you need to capitalize on Black Friday. The sweet spot of that is doing Black Friday before Black Friday. So take your VIP customers, give them early access to whatever you're doing, and actually then don't do Black Friday, you know, like treat your customers who are maybe purchased 3, 4, 5 times, treat them separately to Kate Williams, who just sits in the pot and opens the email and never buys. So just really be personalized and segment your data. But I think taking it right back to, I'm a small business, I have one employee who does my marketing. I need to know which activities are really going to help my business grow from a marketing perspective and a quantifiable perspective. Start with email and then start to layer on other growth channels, i.e. ads, as long as you've got your retention funnel covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really has. Like, I've learned that one without the other is almost a little bit not
Pointless.
pointless.
I
Is
would
it
say pointless.
Oh, right. Bloody hell, I wasn't going to go that far.
Gonna go that far.
Pointless. One without the other, pointless.
Yeah.
Like, your retention should be at the heart of your business.
Yeah, yeah, because your ad, you go and finding people, and the other one, you're putting them in your net.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, aren't you?
I think, I mean, I'm going to caveat on that point. If, again, we've seen clients who come to us with a really high value product, okay? So it might be a product they buy, might cost them $3,000. So we had a lovely client who made like champagne buckets, like champagne
Nice.
buckets. They were like $3,000. Well, that customer's not going to rebuy a champagne bucket, are they? Because that was her only product in her line. So when I'm saying look after your customers, keep that retention piece, for her strategy was slightly different, because then she had to go into that referral piece. Like, how could she tell her customer who had just bought to be a sneezer, like tell other people about the products. So I think, again, it really depends on your industry. It really depends on your audience. It really depends on your product that you're trying to sell or service, if you're a service-based business. But just be strategic and go right back to the beginning of, take a plain piece of paper and start with your customer. How did your customer find you? I think going hand in hand with the retention piece is your loyalty piece. So again, how can you reward your customers for being loyal? So you might have seen online with your text message that you got with your 10% off, they might then in a couple of weeks target you with a loyalty program. So buy this, get 5 points, which is £5, or buy this and be entered into something. So loyalty is a big part of retention. And I think brands are trying to be more creative with retention and loyalty at the moment. But people love free things. Like, why would you not want to buy and then be given an extra £5? Like, I'd love that.
Yeah.
We're trying to work on that with, I suppose, our, referrals, and because we're a service-based business,
Yeah.
and, it is, niche recruitment, high fee sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not going to, clients aren't going to necessarily buy all the time, sort of thing, and candidates aren't necessarily going to get placed all the time. So it's all about referrals, how we can get people to be sneezers. So that's the best. That's a big takeaway from us, isn't it?
And it makes your customer journey, client journey, recruitment journey, it still could be automated, but in a longer period of time. So if you see that people go through that recruitment process maybe every 5 years, every 2 years, whatever that might be, you could still automate that, but just on a really long
basis.
a really long period of time.
Yeah.
And then learn from that automation. Could you start to put in different touch points with those people over the time and try and entice them back in? I'm sure you could. But if you do an automation, you can then monitor what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of businesses, I've certainly learned loads just from this conversation, and I've learned loads from a sense of, felt like I knew a lot of this, didn't know all of it, but like struggled to apply it. So do you, is that the sort of strategy that you do for a lot of your clients as well? Like the actual application, setting up the plan and then going for it?
Yeah. So again, every client we work with is totally different. Some come to us and say, we just need the strategy. Can you do the strategy for us? We'll deliver the strategy, and then they'll go and do it themselves. Because they might have one marketing person, they might have 5. Other people come to us and they say, right, let's do the strategy. And then can you help us implement the strategy? So it really depends. So for the likes of Cornish Cheese Company, we do their bi-weekly newsletters for them. So it depends on, what the setup looks like within the business. But the point of that is strategies are really great. They're really glossy and they can just be done and left. The key to a strategy is the implementation piece. If you don't implement it, what's the point of the strategy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
We do.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I feel like,
You've learned loads.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've learned so much.
So I want to know, I'm going to interview you two now.
Yeah, you-
What's the one piece of advice or knowledge that you've picked up that you're going to do and go away in your business today?
Shall I go first?
You can go first. Yeah. I've got loads.
The main thing I'm going to do is, like Jevon said, I feel like we do know these and this stuff, and we are starting very much at the starting process of this because we are probably the bugbear client. We've got a database.
Yeah.
Is the database cleansed as well as it could be? Probably not. But I think the first place that I need to start is I just need the blank piece of paper, I think. I think we need to understand exactly where the audience is coming from. But with recruitment, obviously, we've got two separate audiences. We've got the clients and the candidates. And then we've got different industries within those two different audiences. So I feel like
you're going to need 5 sheets of paper.
I feel like we're going to need a lot of pieces of paper. But I think I need to get to know our audience a bit better. Is what I've taken away.
And when they come into that, on that piece of paper, how can you use email, i.e. your email platform?
Yeah.
Which MailChimp might not be the one for.
Yeah.
But how can you use your email platform to then nurture them in a way that's really authentic as well, I think.
So I know the audience and you know the process.
The process.
That's the thing. Yeah,
so you just both need to sit down together and pick the audience brain and pick the process brain and join them together.
Yeah.
We do.
That does happen a lot though, doesn't it? Like you think of the process, but I can't think of a way to actually action it, and then I think of what I might want, and then it actually happens.
Yeah,
that's my takeaway from it. Is like the actual application and the why, because we've got that top funnel, but then we haven't taken it a step. And then another step and another step and another step, which has been quite difficult because maybe we just haven't quite got to that stage yet, have we, with actually giving our customers, clients, whatever, what they've wanted.
I think it's really easy.
We've just got that material, haven't we?
We just got,
I think it's easy as well to go, I'm going to do some marketing because I know I need some new business. I'm just going to turn some ads on. And you're like, great. So what's that going to do?
Yeah. I think we've got the ideas. The strategic needs to follow along with it now is what I'm taking away.
I'm also thinking about this from like 2 perspectives, or like even 3, because there's obviously the candidates and the clients, but then we do, like, as recruitment consultants, we like market a lot of our candidates out on mailers. We send a lot of emails out to clients which have just got like candidate profiles, and there's no sequence to that necessarily. There's not much like there is thought, but there's not like much process about it. You get a good candidate in, you want people to know about it. So I'm thinking of like just little intricacies, that sort of stuff, but it's a little bit different to what we're talking about, because we're very much talking about like from a business point of view, lots of like value add rather than just candidates and like our product.
Yes.
But then again, thinking about that, maybe we're sending out a little bit too much about our product and rather than like the other bits and bobs.
Yeah. Do you know, it's something, so again, when we write a strategy for a client, we either write it or we do it with them. And something that I love doing, and it goes back to my roots of why I started KW Marketing, right, was I just love hearing the stories of why these businesses were set up in the first place, because normally it's to solve a problem, isn't it? A business is created to solve a problem, whether that's recruitment, whether that's digital marketing, whether it's popcorn. The problem is people love popcorn. Right? Anyway, but it's really interesting. I love getting in front of these businesses and these brands to hear the story about why they created their business. And then what we would do in a workshop environment is I would sit with them and we would create the strategy together, really top level versus a detailed one where we would go away and do it. But I think going into this year, and as this year, we go further on in the year and more comes out about AI as well, brands and businesses want to see me more, which is it's
Mm.
quite strange, because I think, again, coming out of COVID, we're all such in silos, weren't
Yeah.
we? Whereas now everybody wants face to face, everybody wants to see you and they want to learn. So I've kind of got my hunger back for everything I do, because I love being in front of people. I love like showing them how important these channels are. And I think when we are in a digital environment, that's more difficult. It's more difficult to get that FaceTime with those people, and to show them the importance of it. And I think every business, because it's different, always has technical challenges, especially from an email perspective. I spoke to somebody yesterday and they were like, "Our website doesn't technically link up with MailChimp," and I was like, well, it will do. It just needs setting up properly.
Yeah.
And I can't see those things unless I'm in front of them and looking at their platforms and looking at their systems. But I think that's one thing to add. If you use a really easy platform like WordPress, Shopify, MailChimp, Klaviyo, they all seamlessly integrate, in inverted commas. If you start to go off the shelf and you have a bespoke website, that then makes complexities, which could then make marketing a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one, just making sure that you've got those integrations speaking.
What I've taken from this as well is like, this isn't like a quick fix, this type of marketing, is it?
No.
It's very much, you might get some results quite quickly, but it's all about the long term.
Long game.
Yeah, but then you can quantify the long-term gains.
Yeah.
So that, say a business comes to you and they have got a bit of a Mickey Mouse website, they might have to have another website.
Yeah.
They might have to put all the processes in place to then actually see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
But then, listen to this podcast, you can see all the benefits, can't you? You
Yeah.
can hear and it's like actually stepped out about how it will work, rather than social media, you almost chuck something out and hope some of it works. It's the classic marketing phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
50% works, but you don't know which 50 sort of thing.
And I think, so we've worked with quite a lot of food bloggers, and food bloggers are, they've got really high followings. So TikTok followers, Instagram followers. And I had a food blogger come to me recently, and their following was like through the roof. I was like, I could only dream of a following like that. You go to their website and their website was not data capturing. It wasn't making them any money. And I was like, how are you creating an income from a job, that you love doing? Food bloggers are normally created out of, they love doing it and it was their hobby. But how do you monetize what you're doing? And that's where email really played a part in that, because she had something like 1 million views a day, right? It was like through the roof. You put a pop-up on there and you data capture those people. Even if you get a third of those people, like her database.
A third would be great.
Her database was like through the roof.
Yeah.
But that is a classic missed opportunity where email can really bridge that gap and close the I need to grow my audience. Because I think what we realized was how important her database was to her business, as it is to every business. Your database is so important to your business. But like I say, it's educating people how important it is without sounding like a broken record.
Yeah. Because people think marketing's the fluffy stuff. Like you say.
know.
They think it's just a, make it look nice, brand, blah, blah, blah. But this is the conversion part.
Yeah,
For me. Like,
it
this
is.
is the conversion part.
And it is a bit more technical, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I think that's nice though, because I feel like we see everybody's marketers nowadays. Like everybody, you post on your LinkedIn, you're technically marketing. Like everybody's marketing. So I'm excited about this bit because it's the challenging.
Yeah.
It feels challenging,
and I think as well, because the younger demographic, they're growing up with Instagram, they're growing up with TikTok. It gives us a run for our money, right? Because we do social media. But I think the key to it is that sort of omni-channel, making all of those channels work together, and making sure that if you're really short on time, resource and budget, that you pick the right channels.
Yeah.
I feel like what we've also done, like from our point of view, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've done a lot of these things, but we've just never stuck to a plan which has been consistent.
Yeah.
So we've done it once. So like database cleanse, for example, we've done it once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hasn't sort of gone forward and, taken shape, has it?
Automate
Yeah,
it.
but we just
Automate
just haven't got to that sort of thing, have we really?
No.
And don't automate it in MailChimp.
No.
Instantly check out Klaviyo when you get out
Yeah.
of here, please. Because I think as well, that's another really important fact is if you spend time in your email platform, you set up automations, the platform itself has got to have longevity as you grow.
Mm.
So if your business goal is, I don't know, a revenue figure or an income figure, is your email platform robust enough to get you to that point? You know, can you automate it enough that Maddie doesn't need to sit there every day of every week creating 5,000 campaigns? Like, does it have longevity? And I would say MailChimp probably doesn't have that longevity.
Yeah.
Don't put me out there though and get me in trouble with MailChimp.
You put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You have put yourself out there. Clip that up, Pat.
Yeah, get that out there.
Cool, fab. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm all out of questions. That's been great. I've learnt loads.
Same. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Well done.